You ever go to the grocery store these days and feel like you're being scammed in slow motion? It's a wild experience. You pick up a carton of milk, something you've bought 1,000 times before, and you see the price. You squint. You put it back down. You pick it up again, thinking maybe you misread it, or maybe this is some new fancy milk that was personally blessed by a celebrity cow. But no, it's the same old milk. It's just that the little sticker on the shelf is now telling a much scarier story than it did last year. It's not just milk, is it? It's the bus fare that suddenly costs an extra 50 cents, or the rent notice that makes your stomach do a backflip. It's this slow, creeping feeling of being squeezed. Every dollar you earn seems to be shrinking right in your wallet, like it's allergic to your pocket, until you realize that the price of everything you need to live has gone up even more. It's like running on a treadmill that someone keeps speeding up. You're working harder, you're sweating more, but you're not actually getting anywhere. You're just trying desperately not to fall off the back. This slow-motion heist is happening to all of us, every single day, at the gas pump, at the checkout counter, and when we pay our bills. This constant financial pressure makes you start asking some fundamental questions. You start wondering if you're going crazy, or if the system itself is rigged. Is this just how things are supposed to work? Is this some unavoidable force of nature, like gravity, or the fact that your phone battery will always die at the worst possible moment? Or is there something more going on behind the scenes? Is this whole inflation thing, this gradual erosion of our financial stability, an unfortunate accident that nobody could have predicted? Or is it, in some way, a choice? A series of decisions made by people in power that lead us directly to this moment of price tag shock. That one question is the key that unlocks the entire mystery. Is inflation an accident, or is it a choice? Because if it's an accident, then we're just victims of circumstance, helpless passengers on a wild economic ride. But if it's a choice, that changes everything. It means there are reasons, there are causes, and there are people making decisions that have a direct impact on the price of that milk carton in your hand. And if choices are being made, it means we can start to understand them, question them, and maybe even demand better ones. So let's start with one of the biggest players in this game, the central bank. People hear about them on the news. Names like the Federal Reserve in the US. They sound official and complicated. But their job, in one sense, is surprisingly simple. They control the money supply. When we were kids, our parents said money doesn't grow on trees. That's technically true. It doesn't grow on trees. It gets printed, or more accurately today, created digitally with a few keystrokes at the central bank. Picture a magic money tree being watered inside a serious-looking bank building filled with economists. Imagine a neighborhood with a special limited edition sneaker everyone wants. Only 100 pairs exist. They're rare, so they're valuable. People pay a lot for them. Now the company releases 100,000 more pairs. Suddenly they're not rare. The value of each pair drops. Anyone who wants one can get one easily. Money works the same way. When a central bank creates lots of new money and pumps it into the economy, each dollar's value can fall. It's not the dollar shrinking, it just buys less. This is often done with good intentions. In a recession or global crisis, central banks will lower interest rates and increase the money supply to encourage borrowing and spending. They're trying to give the economy an adrenaline shot. Think of pouring gasoline on a fire to make it bigger. But pour too much, and it gets out of control. A flood of new money chasing the same goods means sellers can ask for more. They see people have cash, so prices creep up. Now, the amount of money in the system is only one half of the equation. The other half is the stuff we actually want to buy. Think about it. Prices are a relationship between how much money is available and how many goods are available. We just talked about what happens when the money side gets bigger. But what happens when the goods side gets smaller? This brings us to the second major driver of inflation supply chain problems, the power of companies to set prices. It's like a giant, global traffic jam where all the things we need are stuck on a highway somewhere. Remember a few years ago when you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere? Or when buying a new car meant putting your name on a waiting list that was 6 months long? That was a classic supply chain disruption. A factory shuts down in one country. A shipping container gets stuck at a port in another. The microchip that goes into your laptop disappears from supply. The specific coffee beans for your favorite blend are unavailable. When supply drops but demand stays the same, or even increases, prices naturally go up. It's the most basic rule. When something is scarce, it becomes more expensive. This isn't necessarily a company being evil, it's just supply and demand at work. However, there's another layer. Economists call it pricing power. It's the ability of a company to raise prices without losing all its customers. If you're the only seller of a specific essential product, you have a lot of pricing power. People have to buy from you, so you can charge more and they'll have no choice. During disruption and uncertainty, some companies see an opportunity. Consumers expect prices to rise because of supply chain news, so companies might raise prices a little extra just because they can. They can blame rising costs and supply issues, and while that may be partly true, they may also be padding profit margins. So we have the central bank with its money printer, and we have companies dealing with supply chains. But there's a third major player at the table, and it's a big one: the government itself. The choices governments make about spending, taxing, borrowing are called fiscal policy, and they have a massive direct impact on the money in your pocket. Think of the government like a giant household. It has income, mostly from taxes, and it has expenses, building roads, funding schools, paying for defense, social programs. Just like any household, if it spends more than it earns, it has to get the money from somewhere. One way the government can fuel the economy is by spending a lot of money. This can be a great thing. When the government invests in new infrastructure projects, it creates jobs. When it sends out stimulus checks to citizens during a crisis, it helps people pay their bills and keeps businesses afloat. This spending injects a huge amount of demand into the economy. All of a sudden, millions of people have more money to spend, and they go out and spend it. This can be a powerful tool to fight a recession, but just like with the central bank's actions, it's a delicate balance. What happens when all that new government-fueled demand runs up against the supply chain problems we just talked about? You guessed it, prices get pushed up. If the government gives everyone $1,000 to spend, but the factories can't produce goods any faster and the ships are still stuck at sea, then you have more money chasing the same limited number of products. Sellers see this wave of demand coming, and they raise their prices. In this scenario, the government's attempt to help people might inadvertently contribute to the inflation that hurts them. It's like trying to put out a fire with one hand while pouring gasoline on it with the other. Furthermore, how the government pays for its spending matters. If it doesn't raise taxes to cover the new costs, it has to borrow the money. This borrowing increases the national debt. To manage this debt, the government might rely on the central bank to keep interest rates low and create more money, linking fiscal policy directly back to monetary policy. The decisions about how much to tax, what to spend money on, and how much to borrow are all political choices. They aren't accidents. They are deliberate actions that create a specific economic environment, and that environment determines whether the prices you pay every day are stable or spiraling out of control. Now let's bring this down to something that hits close to home for so many people, especially younger generations. The cost of education. The sticker shock you feel at the grocery store is nothing compared to the shock of seeing a tuition bill. For decades, the cost of going to college has been rising at a rate that makes general inflation look like a joke. It's a perfect storm where all the forces we've discussed come together to create a massive financial burden. It's not just an expensive purchase, it's a debt that can follow you for a huge portion of your adult life, shaping every decision you make. First, let's look at the role of government policy. For years, the government has made it incredibly easy to get student loans. The intention was noble: to make higher education accessible to everyone, regardless of their family's income. But this flood of easy money had an unintended consequence. Universities knew that students could now borrow almost any amount they needed. So what did they do? They raised their prices. Why not? The money was guaranteed by the government. They could build fancier dorms, hire more administrators, and expand their campuses, all paid for by students taking on more and more debt. The easy credit acted like rocket fuel for tuition inflation. This directly affects your personal finances and your relationship with wages and savings. You graduate from college with a degree that was supposed to help you get a good job, but you're also starting your career tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. That monthly student loan payment is like a private tax that you have to pay for decades. It reduces the amount of money you have left over to save for a down payment on a house, to invest for retirement, or even just to handle an unexpected emergency. Your wages might go up, but a huge chunk of that increase is immediately eaten by a debt that you took on years ago. The rising cost of learning becomes a trap. It punishes people for trying to improve their lives and get ahead. The savings you might have built up get wiped out by tuition payments. If all of this feels new and unprecedented, I have some bad news for you. It's not. We have been here before. History is full of examples of countries struggling with inflation, and these episodes show us that the playbook behind it is often remarkably consistent. One of the most famous and instructive examples, at least for people in the Western world, is the Great Inflation of the 1970s. For people who lived through it, it was a miserable decade of economic uncertainty, and it holds powerful lessons about the choices that lead to rising prices and the difficult decisions required to stop them. It started with government spending. The US government was spending enormous amounts of money on both the Vietnam War and ambitious domestic social programs. This was classic fiscal policy, injecting huge demand into the economy. At the same time, central bankers were reluctant to raise interest rates to cool things down. They were afraid that higher rates would cause a recession and increase unemployment, which is a politically unpopular move. So, they kept the money supply growing, hoping to keep the party going. Then came the supply shock. In 1973, a group of oil-producing countries in the Middle East declared an oil embargo against the United States and other Western nations. Suddenly, the price of oil, the lifeblood of the global economy, quadrupled. The cost of everything shot up, from gasoline at the pump to the electricity used to run factories. This was a massive global supply chain problem, just like the ones we see today, but focused on a single, critical commodity. You had a perfect storm: massive government spending, easy money from the central bank, and a huge supply shock. The result was a decade of painful, persistent inflation. The experience of the 1970s shows us that inflation doesn't just happen. It was fueled by a series of policy choices. When we talk about inflation as a big, abstract economic force, it's easy to forget that it doesn't affect everyone equally. Inflation is not a gentle rain that falls on all of us in the same way. It's more like a targeted storm that soaks some people to the bone, while others are sitting comfortably inside with an umbrella, or maybe even selling umbrellas at a huge markup. There are clear winners and clear losers in the inflation game. Understanding who they are reveals the deep unfairness. It's a quiet transfer of wealth from one group to another. The biggest losers are almost always the people who can least afford it. If you are on a fixed income, like a retiree, living off a pension or Social Security, inflation is a nightmare. The amount you receive each month stays the same, but the cost of everything you need, food, medicine, heating, goes up. Your purchasing power evaporates right before your eyes. Savers are also big losers. If you diligently saved your money in a simple savings account at the bank, the interest you earn is almost certainly much lower than the rate of inflation. Even though the number in your account is going up slightly, the real value of your savings is actually going down. You are losing money by trying to be responsible. So, who are the winners? Anyone with large amounts of fixed-rate debt can win. Think about a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Your monthly payment stays exactly the same, but as inflation rises, the value of those dollars you're paying back goes down. You're repaying with money worth less than what you borrowed. Hearing about all of this can feel overwhelming and discouraging. It can feel like we are just pawns in a giant economic game played by powerful people. But being a pawn doesn't mean you have no moves to make. Understanding the playbook is the first step. Use that knowledge to protect yourself and your family. We can't single-handedly stop inflation, but we can build financial lifeboats to navigate the storm. Shift from passive victim to active participant in your financial life. Start with what you can control. This starts with a budget. The word budget may sound boring, but in inflation, it's about awareness. A budget shows where your shrinking dollars go. It highlights where price hikes hurt most and where you can make adjustments. Awareness is the foundation of a solid plan. Then make your money work for you. Savings in a standard bank during high inflation is like ice in the sun. Find ways to help your money keep pace. Consider assets that do well in inflation. Real estate, broad market index funds. Invest in inflation-protected assets. Treasury inflation-protected securities. They rise with the CPI. These are defensive strategies to preserve savings. Invest in yourself. Your skills and earning ability are your top assets. A stagnant wage is a pay cut in real terms. So, we've taken a journey behind the curtain. We've seen the people in the back rooms, pulling the levers and pushing the buttons. We've met the central bankers with their magic money tree. We've met the corporations with their pricing power. We've met the governments with their giant credit cards. It turns out that the sticker shock you feel at the grocery store isn't some random act of God. It's not a mystery. It's the end result of a series of deliberate choices, a hidden playbook that has been running in the background of our lives all along. The most important thing is that now, you know what that playbook looks like. You now know to watch for the signals. When you hear a politician promising massive new spending programs without explaining how they will be paid for, you can see the potential link to future inflation. You understand that this isn't free money. It's a choice that creates demand in the economy, and that demand has consequences. When you hear the head of the central bank talking about keeping interest rates low to stimulate the economy, you understand the delicate balancing act they are performing. You know that their choices directly influence the value of the money in your bank account and the interest rates on your loans. Let's go back to where we started. That carton of milk. It's sitting in your fridge right now. It costs more than it did last year. That fact hasn't changed. The pain of that higher price is still real. You still have to work more hours, or cut back on something else, to afford the basic necessities of life. The daily squeeze is a reality for millions of people. But something fundamental has changed. Before, that price tag might have just made you feel angry, frustrated, helpless. It was a number that was happening to you, an attack from an unknown enemy. Now, when you look at that price, you see something more. You see the ghost of a government spending bill passed 2 years ago. You see the faint echo of a central bank decision to print more money. You see the shadow of a container ship stuck in a canal. You see the pricing strategy of a massive corporate distributor. The price tag is no longer just a number, it is a story. It's a story about policy, about power, about choices. You can now read that story. You understand the characters, you know the plot, and you can see how it all comes together. This understanding is the crucial bridge from pain to power. The pain of inflation doesn't go away, but the feeling of helplessness can. When you understand the playbook, you can start demanding a better one. You can ask tougher questions of your political leaders. You can vote for policies and people that prioritize long-term stability over short-term fixes. You can make smarter decisions with your own money, protecting your family from the worst effects of these economic currents. You are no longer just reacting to the economy. You are responding to it with knowledge and intention. The goal was never just to explain why things are expensive. The goal was to show you that the economy is not like the weather. It is not an uncontrollable force of nature. It's more like a car being driven down a road. Hands on the steering wheel, feet on the pedals. Choices are being made about where to go and how fast to get there. The pain you feel when you pay your bills is the direct result of those choices. And that is the final aha moment. Inflation isn't an accident, it's a script. And knowing the script is the first step to demanding a rewrite. This knowledge itself is a form of power. It's the power to see the world more clearly, to understand the forces shaping your financial life, and to stop feeling like a helpless victim of circumstances you can't comprehend. The mystery is gone, replaced by a clear and sometimes unsettling understanding. You can see the difference between a genuine problem and opportunistic price setting. This isn't just about numbers on a screen. It's about understanding the hidden playbook that governs our lives.